In 2006, Motor Kombat was a minigame featured inside of Mortal Kombat Armageddon, which was basically Mario Kart meets Mortal Kombat. In today's episode of Cryogenic Creations, I'm going to be creating Motor Kombat cars inside of Rocket League. So the first Motor Kombat build that we're going to be building here on Rocket League Super Build is going to be the Scorpion / Sub-Zero buggy. So the first thing that you're going to need to equip is the Venom body type. The next thing here is going to be the Retro Sun decal, and I went with the Retro Sun decal for both the blue team and the orange team, and the reason being is because this is actually my head nod to the Palace Swapped Ninja designs from the old Mortal Kombat games, from Mortal Kombat 1 through 3. Because back in the day, all the ninjas had the exact same design, but just were different colors. Hence the reason why we called them Palace Swapped Ninjas. So I decided to keep that same premise here with the Scorpion / Sub-Zero car. Here's the blue that I chose for the primary on the blue team. Both the Ascents are black. And you guys will see that I have glossy paint finishes. I didn't use any special paint finishes on any of these. For the primary, I decided to go with like a light goldenrod yellow or like a gold coin yellow. And I feel like it's a nice yellow. I feel like this is pretty close to the yellow that Scorpions had from Motor Kombat. Then for the wheels, for Scorpions, I decided to equip the Server Gate wheels, and the reason being is because Scorpion actually had skulls on his tires. For Sub-Zero's tires, on the other hand, I just decided to equip these blue tires up here, which are called the Aetherius tires, I think that's how you say it. And the reason I equipped these is because they're glowing, and it honestly kind of looks like glowing ice, kind of, just a little bit. For the rocket boost, for Sub-Zero, I decided to equip the Snowflake boost, and I feel like that's pretty obvious because, you know, Sub-Zero's all about ice and snow, you know, just like me! For Scorpion, I decided to equip a classic, which is the, I believe it's up here, it's the Flamethrower boost. Right here it is. I decided to equip the classic Flamethrower boost because in Motor Kombat, Scorpion had a Flamethrower boost. Now the unfortunate thing is that Rocket League doesn't have, you know, toppers that you can put on the back of the car. I so wish I could put the skull on the back of this car and have the skull shooting the flame out of its mouth, just like Scorpion's car did in Motor Kombat. That would have been sick. But unfortunately we can't do that. For the topper, nothing. For the antenna, nothing. For the goal explosion, for Sub-Zero, I don't have any ice goal explosions, but if I did, I probably would have equipped that. So for Sub-Zeros, I just did the standard purple, and for Scorpions, I did the standard orange. If I had an ice, I would have equipped that for Sub-Zero, but again, don't have it, unfortunately. For Scorpion's trail, I equipped friction, and the reason being is because, you know, it's basically like a fire trail. You know, for Sub-Zeros, on the other hand, I decided to go with the Winter Storm Trail. You know, keeping it all about ice and snow again. And for the audio here, for the engine audio, I decided to equip Cyclone, and I believe that was on both builds here. I don't think I had a different engine sound for... Yep. Alright, yeah, so it looks like I used Cyclone for both Scorpion and Sub-Zero. And now I just want to point this out, I know that the engine audio isn't like the most important thing, but if you guys were curious and wanted to know, hey Frozen, you know, what engine audio did you use? Well, that's why I'm including it. But I also feel like for my Raiden build, you guys are going to want to know, because the audio engine noise that I got for Raidens is really good. Trust me on that one. And I feel like, you know, this one's pretty good too. This is similar to what Scorpion's car sounded like in Motor Kombat. But yeah, so that's the Scorpion and Sub-Zero buggy. snowmobile, I had to get a little creative. Since there's no snowmobiles in Rocket League, I decided to go with the Triton body type because it has like these covers over the tops of the wheels. It has this visor, you know, it's a slimmer, sleeker car. It also has a fender in the back, and it's basically like if you were to take a snowmobile and fuse it with a car. For the decal, none. For the paint finish, I decided to go with this blue as the primary color, and I decided to go with anodized pearl for the material. For the accents, I decided to go with white, and I decided to make the material glossy. And I decided to do this because in Motor Kombat, Sub-Zero's car was like a lighter blue. It was like a metallic lighter blue, and at certain angles, depending on which way you look at it, it actually would look a little bit silver. So it would almost look like this, kind of. On the orange team, I decided to go with the dark red since this is Sector. So for the Sector build, I decided to go with the dark red. And for the material, I decided to go with anodized pearl, just like Sub-Zero. For the Ascent, I went with black, and I decided to go with glossy for the material. For the wheels, I decided to go with the Season 4 bronze tires, and the reason I went with Season 4 bronze was because in Mortal Kombat Armageddon, Sub-Zero's car actually had spikes on his tires. And these look very close to Sub-Zero's tires from Motor Kombat, so I was like, yo, I gotta equip those ones. I just thought this was so cool. For the rocket boost, I decided to go with nuts and bolts for Sector, and the reason being is because, well, you know, he's a part of the Cyberlink way. It just made sense, you know, because he's a robot. And for Sub-Zero, I think I just went with the snowflakes, which are down here, the snowflake boost. Yes, I decided to go with the snowflake boost, so just like the other Sub-Zero build that we did, only this is Sub-Zero's Sub-Zero build. So this isn't the palette swap version, this is the better Sub-Zero build, you know? But yeah, so Sub-Zero's rocket boost is the snowflakes. For the toppers, I have nothing for either one of them. For the antenna, I also went with nothing as well. For the goal explosion, I did the standard purple for Sub-Zero and the standard orange for Sector. For the trail, I decided to go with Winter Storm for Sub-Zero, and for Sector, I decided to go with Friction. And for the engine sound, I decided to go with the Proteus V2. Next up is the Raiden and Liu Kang car. And honestly, this ended up being one of my favorite builds that I made. This has to be like my second favorite build that I've made. So for the body type, I went with the Samurai. For the decal, I decided to go with Thunderspec for the Raiden build. For the Liu Kang build, I decided to go with Pegasus. And although I could have went with the Flames decal, I feel like the Pegasus one looks a little bit better in my opinion. For the primary color on the blue team, or on the Raiden build, I decided to go with this blue, and for the material, I decided to make that metallic smooth. For the Ascent, I decided to make it white, and for the material, matte. And for the primary color on the Liu Kang build, I decided to go with a deep red, and I decided to make the material metallic. For the Ascent, I decided to go with black and make the material metallic as well. For the wheels, I decided to go with the Draco wheels for Liu Kang since he's known for shooting fireballs and turning into a dragon. And I just felt like these tires really complemented the Liu Kang set, you know? For Raiden, on the other hand, I decided to equip what are called the Aftershock tires. And the reason I went with these is because in Motor Kombat, Raiden's car actually flies, so he has a hovering car. Now unfortunately, we can't not have any tires. But we do have what are called the Aftershock tires, which look like they belong in a flying car. These, coupled with the engine audio noise, will actually make you feel like you're in a hovering car. I promise. So next up here we have the Rocket Boost. For Raiden, I decided to go with Lightning since he's the God of Thunder! For Liu Kang, I decided to go with I believe I just went with the flamethrower for him, which is up here. Yep. Yeah, so for Liu Kang, I went with the flamethrower. For the topper, nothing. For the antenna, nothing as well. For the gold explosion, I just have it on standard orange. I didn't really know what to do with Raiden. I guess I could have done purple, but I just have it on orange. For Liu Kang's trail, I decided to go with friction. So you guys will kind of notice a theme here. Any type of fire-based character, I basically will use like the friction for the trail. For Raiden's trail, I decided to go with a luminous trail, since it kind of looks like electricity. But I just felt like this complimented the Raiden build. I honestly think this is a cool trail. And then for the engine audio, I decided to go with the initializer. This, coupled with the aftershock tires, made me feel like I was driving around Raiden's hovering car from Motor Kombat. It was sick getting to try this out. And other than that, yeah, that's the Raiden and Liu Kang build. Okay, so for this one, I decided to do something different. So Reptile and Ermac actually weren't in Motor Kombat, so I just decided to make my own custom Motor Kombat cars. So for the body type, I decided to go with the Vulcan. And the reason I went with the Vulcan was because it has like this really big, yellow, yellow visor mirror in the front of the vehicle. And I felt like if Reptile had a car, he'd have something, kind of crazy looking like this with like, yellow tinted glass, on the front of his car and on like, the part of his mirror there. And it also works pretty well for Ermac as well. For the decal, I decided to go with Space Worm. Now, normally I'll have two different decals, but for Reptile and Ermac, honestly, looking at this, I feel like it works pretty well for both Reptile and Ermac. For the paint finish, I decided to go with this green on Reptile's side of things. So on the Reptile build, I went with this green, and I went with the Dino material to give it like the scales look. For the Ascent, I decided to go with black, and the material I decided to make it white, or the not white. I decided to make the material glossy and the color black. For the primary color on Ermac's side of things, I decided to go with a deep red. So this is pretty much the same red that I used for the Liu Kang build. And I decided to go with corroded metal for the material of that. And for the Ascent, I decided to go with black. And for the material, I decided to go with glossy, just like on Reptiles. For the tires, I decided to go with the Sanchez DC137 tires. So these are the Rick and Morty tires. I feel like they work really well for the Ermac build, because Ermac is known for, opening up portals and, shooting, green orbs out of his hands. The first thing that I think of when I think of Ermac has got to be portals and green orbs. And so that's why I went with these for the Ermac build. For the Reptile build, I decided to go, I believe his tires are up here. Yes. So I decided to go with these tires, which are basically like a lizard's eye. And the lizard's eye moves! How cool is that? So these are called the Grimolikin. Yeah, I think that's how you say it, the Grimolikin. So these are the Grimolikin tires, which are basically reptile eye tires. How cool is that? I felt like they just complimented the car so much, For Reptiles, boost here, I decided to go with slime. And I feel like that makes sense since Reptile is always spitting out acid and slime, and you know, that's what he's known for. For Urimax boost, I decided to go with, I believe it's the Xenosplash, yes. I decided to go with the Xenosplash boost because Urimax is known for, again, you know, shooting out green orbs and stuff. And so this is basically like, you know, Urimax power. He would shoot out beams like this. For the Topper, I decided to go with nothing. I also didn't equip anything for either one of them on the antenna. For the Goal Explosion, I just decided to keep it simple with the standard green. For the Trail, I decided to go with the Marvel Crackle for Urimax, which I think, okay, no, I was gonna say, and the Ooze, the TCRI Ooze, that came from the TMNT event in Fortnite, and I think it was also an event in Rocket League as well. I decided to equip this for Reptile's boost, or the Trail, I should say. So this right here is Reptile's Trail, and I just felt like, you know, this really complemented everything, you know, along with the lizard eyes, the scales on the card. You know, I mean, this trail right here literally looks like Reptile doing, like, the fast dash when he, like, leaves a slime trail, you know. So those are the trails. And then for the engine audio, I decided to go with the Heinrich. And there you have it, the Reptile and Urimax card. And last but not least, the Katana / Melina card. So for this one, I decided to go with the Zippy for the body. I decided to go with the Caluus, I think that's how you say it, for Katana's decal. And the reason I went with this is because Katana is a very royal character, and this was like the closest thing to like a royal decal that I had. I could have went with something else, but I decided to go with this. I know it's a little bit tribal-like, but it is also a little bit royal-like as well, especially when you see what colors I used as well. For Melina's decal, I decided to go with Tiger because in Motor Kombat, her car kind of has like these, you know, black lines on it. This doesn't look perfect, but it looks a little bit like her car. For the Katana build, I decided to go with this blue for the primary color, and for the material, I decided to go with metallic. For the Ascent, I decided to go with this darker blue, and I decided to go with metallic for the material as well. And when colored, it actually looks really cool. This actually does look like something that Katana would drive. For the primary color on the orange team, I decided to go with like a hot pink, and I decided to make the material glossy. For the Ascent, I decided to go with black, and I decided to make the material glossy as well. For the wheels, I decided to go with the Ripper. And the reason I went with the Ripper for Melina's tires is because, well, I just felt like this would have given Melina's tires a little bit more personality. In Motor Kombat, I believe her tires are a little plain, so I wanted to spice things up by putting spikes on her tires. For Katana's tires, I decided to do something cool. So, I believe her tires are actually up here, I believe, but I could be wrong. Yeah, so these are called the Acereo Florentina. So the Acereo Florentina tires kind of look like Katana's fan blades when you drive this thing. So I just thought, you know, the design of this was so cool, and when I started driving it around, I'm like, yo, that's sick! It looks like Katana's fan blades spinning around, you know? Anyways, moving in here. So for the rocket boost, I decided to go with the Ninja Stars for Katana's card. And for Melina, I believe I just went with a Ion Pink, but I could be wrong. No, I actually went with the Uncanny. Yeah, I can see why I went with the Uncanny. Yeah, so I went with the Uncanny because this looks like Melina's powers when she like teleports and stuff. And I just felt like this, you know, was going to add so much to Melina's build. And I feel like it really does. I really feel like it makes her build stand out when compared to Kitana's. For the topper, nothing. For the antenna, nothing. For the goal explosion, I decided to go with Spatil Rift Pink. I don't really have any, you know, blue goal explosions, so unfortunately I couldn't really do anything for Kitana. But if I was to do something for her, I probably would have just done the standard purple. For the trail, I decided to go with energy binders for Melina. And for Kitana, I decided to go with zigzag, which as you can see are like these blue zigzags, which I feel like give Kitana's star personality. And for the engine audio, I decided to go with the Damas. And there you have it, a Kitana / Melina car.